There we go. Welcome to today's webinar, an introduction to OCRE framework and onboarding into AWS. Thank you for attending today. To start off, we're going to hear from Jamal Haider, Jisc Cloud Solutions Engagement Manager, who'll provide an overview of OCRE and Jisc's involvement in the framework. Then we'll hear from Peter Cliff, our AWS Solutions Architect, who will explain the onboarding process into AWS. Then after Pete, we're going to pass over to Nicola Bibby from the Courtauld Institute of Art. She will be sharing her experience of procuring AWS through OCRE and the onboarding process as our first customer. Finally, before finishing, we have Q&A. Please use the chat feature in Zoom to add your questions during the session, and we can review them at the end. So now, without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Jamal.
Thank you very much, Adam. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, all good, Jamal.
Perfect. Thank you, Adam. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamal Haider. I'm the Cloud Services Engagement Manager, part of the Jisc Cloud Solutions team. In this presentation, I will give some background on Jisc, details of our OCRE deal and value proposition, and some further details on the procurement process and technical setup. So, what is OCRE? The framework agreement set up by the Open Clouds for Research Environments, OCRE, as it's short, a project consortium led by Giant to help accelerate cloud service adoption in the education and research community. This is a 4-year framework starting from 1st of December until November 2024. There is one reseller per cloud platform per country, and Jisc is the AWS reseller in the UK. So who can use the framework? For Jisc, all customers must be based in the UK. Any higher education, further education institutions, research establishments, or other organizations such as local authorities and other bodies who are members of higher and further education purchasing consortia are eligible to use the framework. Some of the highlights of the benefits of the OCRE framework: it's compliant with EU procurement laws, which means that the institutions using the framework or looking to use the framework do not need to conduct public procurement or tendering procedures. There are pre-negotiated discounted prices across all AWS services. You get access to global data egress waivers and cloud adoption support, which is such as access to events and news, workshops, and the AWS Go program, which is a fully funded AWS program, which is delivered at no cost to our members. So a bit about Jisc. So Jisc is a membership organization known for its Janet network, connecting the UK's universities and colleges. With over 30 years experience, Jisc is seen as a trusted partner for education and the wider public and third sectors. Services are broad, as shown in the chart, driven by our vision for the UK to be a world leader in technology for education and research. Jisc is a not-for-profit organization. We are driven to positively impact the sector, investing in technology for good as a social enterprise. A bit about Jisc Cloud Solutions. So Jisc Cloud Solutions is a division of Jisc partnered with AWS, Microsoft, and Google. We are an AWS advanced consulting partner. Our team of cloud consultants, solution architects, security engineers, cloud engineers, and project managers provide consultancy, professional services, and managed services to our customer base that includes education and research, central government, local governments, non-for-profits. So what is our OCRE offer? We have been selected as the UK AWS reseller on the OCRE framework. We have negotiated a deal to offer the sector a 14% discount on AWS list price. This is with no spend commit, so a unique opportunity for a smaller spending organizations. Whenever an organization buys AWS from Jisc, they get access to our billing portal and core managed service, which includes patching, monitoring, and support. We also offer paid for enhanced support options, such as consultancy and professional services. So this next slide gives an option, that gives an overview of what is available via our core managed service. I would just like to highlight, and my colleague Peter will go into the detail after my talk, is that whenever you purchase services through Jisc as an AWS reseller on OCRE framework, Jisc will be your first line support. That means that any tickets you will be logging with AWS will go through via Jisc. Along with that, there's also, you will get access to the service desk, configuration and management of your EC2 instances, monthly reporting and an annual security review. So that's an optional free core managed service. There is enhanced paid for managed services options available as well, which includes 24/7 monitoring, managed backups, enhanced anti-malwares, enhanced security, and quarterly architecture review, providing security compliance recommendations and upgrades. So Jisc has a broad range of activities across connectivity, cyber, cloud, and data analytics. We therefore are well placed to offer consultancy and professional services across all the AWS products areas, and we are also happy to partner with obviously the relevant teams to deliver these as a consultancy or professional services engagements. So this is to cover the procurement and billing sides of OCRE. So regarding procurement, it's aimed to be fairly simple. Jayant have provided a call of contract that would need signing by the purchaser and Jisc. We would also require a purchaser to sign our T's and C's to cover services outside OCRE, including AWS Marketplace, which is out of scope of the 14% discount. We also have an order form which details the services being procured and would need a customer PO for our finance team to invoice against. So the invoices will be sent in monthly arrears and in British pounds, and the conversion rate will be the conversion rate between dollar and pound at the time. Regarding onboarding, OCRE sales will require the setup of a new AWS account or migrating existing ones into Jisc AWS organization structure. We have set up a new partner org just for OCRE sales. This is because the 14% discount is available when bought via Jisc as a reseller. We will onboard all OCRE customers into a new OCRE AWS organization. For customers that are new to AWS, we expect that to be done for free as a part of our core managed service, like I covered in my previous slides. Where a customer has an existing AWS organization in place, particularly if they have configured a mature set of guardrails, then we anticipate that some paid for professional services may well be required as a part of onboarding in order to replicate their existing functionality. So yeah, I'd like to finish by saying for Jisc, we exist to help our members get the most out of technology, including public cloud. We think our AWS OCRE offer really does this and will increase uptake of AWS services within the higher education and further education and research communities. Key takeaways to remember, it's a 14% discount, there is no spend commit, and it's a simple procurement. Yep, thank you very much. And I'll now pass over to my colleague, Peter Cliff, who will take you through the details of technical onboarding with OCRE framework. Thank you.
Cool, thanks, Jamal. Hello, everyone. I will also attempt to share my screen. Let's see what happens. Go with that one, I think. Can you see my slides now? I can see Adam nodding. Perfect. Excellent. All right. Okay. Let's get going. Yes. Right. Hello. My name is Peter Cliff. I'm a solutions architect at Jisc, and I specialize in AWS. I'm one of a team of solutions architects in various clouds. Today, I want to talk about kind of onboarding of customers into the well, essentially onto buying through OCRE. There's some technical content in this, but I want to keep it as kind of high level as possible. So there's just a few requirements that you need to adhere to if you're going to purchase through OCRE. There's a few things that must be done, and what's the other thing I had? So we're going to outline some of those and just discuss the process a little bit, so you have an idea. If you come to us, say, I want to buy through OCRE, what's going to happen, how that's going to progress. For the majority of our customers and members, we hope that it would be a simple, quick, easy process. For some accounts, as Jamal alluded to, the ones who are perhaps more experienced in using AWS, have more content, more resources, are making use of things like AWS Organization, then there might be a little bit more involvement in the process, but and the reasons for that I'll kind of outline as we go. So hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll have a clear idea of what's involved in onboarding to AWS, OCRE with Jisc, and I'll have answered some of your questions. And you'll see I've kind of done this essentially following the FAQ document that we have for this process, and some other, it's got some other bits in there about operational support and various other things. So if you want to see that FAQ document, then just request it, that's not a problem. So yes, hopefully I'll answer some questions, inspire some new questions. And if you've got questions, ask them in the chat and we can come on to them at the end. Or if you're watching the recording, just get in touch and ask any of your questions. My email is on the screen there, and there's Jamal as well, it's available. Okay, so let's get started. Essentially, there's kind of two ways in which you can take advantage of OCRE. One, as Jamal said, is to take your AWS account, existing AWS accounts, if you have them. If you don't, that's even easier. If you have existing AWS accounts and they're standalone and they're not part of AWS organizations or using Control Tower, then you can just bring those into the Jisc managed organization on the left here. I don't know if you, do you see my mouse? I don't know if you see a mouse or not. Cool, over on the left here. So here is just a standalone account, and the quickest and easiest way is to bring that straight in. I'm going to go into a bit more detail on that in a second. The other option is if you are already using AWS organizations, or you have, I should say, if you're not familiar with an AWS organization, probably you don't need to worry about it whenever I say it. But it's just a way of managing multi-account structures within AWS. So here, this organization is moved within the kind of OCRE framework for AWS. There's one tiny little change, which the observant of you may have noticed, which is that this payer account goes orange when you transfer in. And that is one of the requirements of purchasing through OCRE, is that this payer account, which is the account to which all of the billing for all of these linked accounts goes through, and someone here is paying either directly to AWS or someone else, needs to be owned by Jisc at that point. So it needs to have a Jisc domain and things. And again, we'll come on to that in a second. So the first thing to talk about, well, the first question, I suppose, that to answer is this one. I have Control Tower or AWS organization. Can I move, that should be an AWS organization, can I move that to OCRE? And so the short answer is yes. The slightly less short answer is yes, but you have a couple of options. And those options are determined by how much use you're making of Control Tower, or how much use you plan to make of those kinds of structures. So if you're using an AWS organization or Control Tower, and you've got your accounts in there and you're managing them through guardrails or SCPs, you're using AWS SSO to access those accounts, you've got a number of production workloads, you're a fairly established user of these kind of multi-account control structures, and you're happy to continue with that, we have the option of bringing that whole organization into the OCRE framework. So the answer is yes, you can do it from that point of view. If that happens, as I was just saying, the payer account on that organization will need to be, is kind of owned by Jisc. So we do a transfer process at that point. The root email address becomes a jisc.ac.domain root email address, and Jisc hold the credentials. Now, the reason for this is that the billing starts to flow through Jisc at that point. So all of those organizational resource consumption will start to go through Jisc. Jisc will pay on behalf of the member and then invoice the members. So this ownership of the payer account gives us kind of control should anything happen with that relationship. Obviously, we hope it won't, but just in case. So optionally, just to give you reassurance, the member could hold the MFA. So we would have the email and the password, but the member holds the MFA. And then there's a kind of a sort of conversation that has to happen should anyone want to access the root account. We as Jisc generally will not access the root accounts at all anyway, because best practice says that you just don't do a lot with a root account. You create it, you set up MFA, and then you start using IAM users or some other way of managing that account. So that's one of your options. Is if you're an established user, you can just bring that org and the payer account under the kind of OCRE framework. The other option is if you are, I don't know, maybe you were experimenting with an organization, or you set up a landing zone using the AWS landing zone templates and wanted to migrate off of that now to something else, but you didn't want the management overhead of running these things, then those accounts can be brought into our organization instead. So it'd be a sort of a kind of hand-holding exercise to dismantle what you've got in terms of organizations and accounts. An AWS account can only be a member of one organization at a time. So those accounts would need to be removed from any existing kind of organization structures and then brought under Jisc within their own organizational unit. Can't remember, did I draw that yet? Yeah, there's a picture of that coming up. So they'll be brought in fact, that's here. You can see these accounts would then sort of be taken into separate accounts and brought in to here. So why would you want to do that? That might be if you didn't want the management overhead of running your own AWS organization. The organization we've set up follows AWS best practice. It's slightly different to kind of some things because it's delivering a multi-tenancy, if you like. It's not just one big business running stuff within there. So there's some sort of structures and controls that we put in place different. But yeah, so if you didn't want to manage an organization, we could look to help you dismantle any existing structure you might have and bring the accounts into the OCRE organization direct. We'll come on to why again, that's a good choice in a bit. Okay, so next question. I already have some AWS accounts. Can I move them to OCRE? So we've kind of covered this already. The answer is yes, of course you can. Unless you have plans longer term to build out a kind of larger thing, and you might want to look at kind of OCRE and things if that is the case to some extent, then unless you've got plans to build out stuff with control tower, that kind of thing, we recommend that if you have some accounts and they're standalone accounts, that you bring them into the OCRE AWS organization that Jisc managed. Yeah, the reason, like I said, is that's a managed thing that we would look after. It gives us kind of easier billing works out of the box, for example. Management overhead is smaller. Applying policies and various other things, if you choose to take managed service, so the managed service roles becomes a little bit kind of more straightforward, shall we say. Okay, so yes is the answer to that question. When kind of dismantling an existing organization or moving an account, I don't think actually account transfer is complete there is necessary at this stage. That would be if we're moving a payer account. So ignore that one. But when you are moving those accounts, it's worth knowing the root credentials of that account. So you need to know the root email, the root password, and any MFA. You don't, when accepting an invite into our OCRE organization, need to use the root account to do that, but you need to know that that information just in case, you know, it's a good backup policy. So if you are removing an account from an organization managed by someone else, say you want to make sure that you have control of that account first, just to give you, you know, so you don't lose access essentially. If that account is part of an organization, and this becomes important on the next slide, I think, then there may be integrations as well. That account might be using guard duty and logging somewhere else. It might be sending CloudTrail logs explicitly to a bucket in a third party, for example, and we would need to identify and help untangle that stuff and see if there are any kind of other issues around it. So the reason I'm telling you that is because I'm about to show you how easy it is to move an account from one org to another, but don't just do it very quickly without thinking it through first, I suppose. So to move an account to another organization, you need to add an independent payment method. So when an account is within an organization or the payment goes up through the payer account, to extract that account, it needs to have its own payment method. We're in the process of figuring out how that would work when you're joining OCRE. So watch this space. I'm not putting my credit card on as this image shows, but we, yeah, we'll figure that out. But essentially, that account needs to have its own independent payment method. That payment method will only be used for the period of time the account is not part of an organization, and we can work with you to determine when the account will leave the organization and rejoin. And so it's out for a couple of minutes at most, if possible, ideally. And yeah, it just happens very quickly, so you don't need to worry. If you've already got an existing credit card on there from prior to joining an organization, you could check. Sometimes they're expired and they need just updating, that kind of thing. So you add the payment method. You leave the current organization. So this is a case of navigating in your account to the AWS organizations and clicking that button that says leave organization, and then the other one that says leave organization, and your account becomes independent at that point. Like I said, it's worth just making sure with whoever owns that organization that this is a safe process to do, and there aren't some bits that will need removing, like roles from that other organization that were applied and these kinds of things. Once that's happened, you can tell Jisc, and Jisc will send an invitation. It will come from here. A nice thing about this is we can add a note. So if you're concerned, you get this email here with this link in it in an email. Now, clicking links in emails, it's always a bit unnerving, I think. So sometimes it's necessary. You can instead ignore this email and just log into the AWS console and then navigate to the invitations and accept the invitation that way. So you don't need to follow the link if you don't want to. But the other possibility is there's a notes field here, and we can include, you can see the notes here and the notes here, and we could include some kind of known secret in there that we share. So if you got this message without that known secret, don't click the link, and if it's there, you can. Just another option, really. But yeah, kind of like phoning your bank back. If they phone you, you can just go to AWS directly to the console and accept the invitation that way. Like I said, you don't have to do that as the root user. You can do that as an admin as well. Okay. Next question. My accounts are with another reseller. How do I take advantage of OCRE? So in this situation, as I've said, to take advantage of OCRE, these accounts either have to sit within the Jisc organization or the payer account is owned by Jisc. So we would have to work with you and the reseller to determine how those accounts are currently held, what the kind of management structure is, are they within an organization already? And then we would need to work with you and the other reseller to transfer the accounts. That may involve this kind of AWS account transfer process, which kind of is a formal kind of contractual thing where a PDF is passed around to change ownership of the account itself if it's currently owned by the reseller. And also it depends on where the account is going to end up. Is it going to be an independent organization or not? But yeah, essentially you need to liberate them from where they are now, and then we can invite them into the OCRE organization, and we carry on as before. So yeah, that's it really. There's just a few there's a bit more involved, but it's again pretty straightforward. Okay, so this is the new customer situation. I've not got any AWS accounts. Can you set me up in OCRE? So the simple answer is yes. This is the kind of simplest case really. In this situation, unless you do have long-term plans to use Control Tower and things, we recommend, and even if you do actually, because you might not get to it, we recommend that we create the accounts for you within our organization. They'll go in their own OUs. I should say within those OUs, we can apply policies at your request to the various OUs within the organization as well. So yes, and as Jamal talked about, with these kind of new accounts, there's possibilities for the guided onboarding program, which is a short kind of couple of days of guided creation of a workload within the new account, with some credits available to fund any kind of resource consumption for a month or two. And they're also proof of concept things. So if you came to us and said, I've got this idea, I want to try it out in OCRE, we might be able to help you out there with various credits and things as well. And it might be we've got templates we can apply already. So this situation again is useful. I think all that stuff is also available if you've got accounts and consumption. We just need to ask. And maybe that'd be a good future webinar, Adam. Okay, so generally all accounts can come into OCRE. There's just a few little bits that we need to think about. Who owns my OCRE AWS accounts? It's an interesting question. The answer is you mostly. As we've talked about, the standalone accounts that come into our organization are continued to be your accounts. The root email addresses are yours still, all that kind of thing. So nothing really changes other than that we kind of put them into our management structure and billing goes through us. We do kind of own the payer accounts for separate organizations and the payer of our organization. But we don't use the root account. We can help you set up things like CloudTrail if you're a CloudTrail and CloudWatch if you want alarms to say when someone's logged in as the root user, just to kind of give you a bit of peace of mind. And if you have particular requirements around privacy, data protection, these kinds of things, then we can talk about that as well. And you can hold the MFA, and there are various options that we have there. So that leads us to just this diagram really, which just kind of summarizes what I've just said. Standalone accounts will move into our org, and if you've got an independent org, just the root changes really. Everything else remains exactly as is, and you do obviously continue to get full administrative rights to this thing to administer the organization that you have so carefully built. So essentially very little changes really when you do that account transfer, and in terms of ownership, very little changes. Okay, so who can access my accounts in OCRE? So you can, of course, and you can do it through these various ways. So when there are standalone accounts as part of our AWS organization, you continue to access via your root email, any IAM users and roles, and any kind of federated access to resources that you might have set up. So AD, sign in, that kind of thing. What you'll note here is that AWS SSO is not available in this situation. We Jisc staff use AWS SSO to kind of administer the organization itself, but we can't make that available to standalone accounts. However, when you're accessing an account and it's a member org and it's part of OCRE, you can access via the root email with Jisc. You can use the IAM users and roles that you already have set up. I should say, if you've got IAM users and roles set up here for access and the account comes into our organization, those IAM users and roles are still there. So that's a useful thing. You can use AWS SSO in this situation, single sign-on, and you can also, if you've got federation or need federation, you can do that. If we're migrating an account from down here to up here, and you're normally using SSO, we can help you figure out how federation might work in that situation. Depending on how complex it is, will determine what kind of route that takes. Okay, so we would access accounts as well, of course, and we'd access these accounts, and the level of access and the kind of permissions that we would get through that access determine what services we're offering. As an absolute bare minimum, we would apply to these accounts here and probably these accounts here a support role, and this will come on to in a bit about how support works. But there'll be a role within these accounts that we would assume to offer support in those accounts, and that's with or without managed service. There might be additional roles for managed service that get applied to these accounts, and we can do all of this through stack sets and things, and we'll tell you what's going on and you'll see it in your console, so you'll know what's going on. This is kind of optional. If we're offering managed service, we obviously need a higher level of privilege to your account to be able to actually administer it and manage it. So we'll add these various roles here. we use AWS SSO, and AWS SSO itself will apply roles to these so that we can log in through, and if you've got an issue, say, we can check the logs or check monitoring, see if systems are offline, patching, all this kind of stuff that we can offer. If not, then with these accessing accounts, then if it's in a member organization, again, here we've got an additional billing role. So we still, the billing for even these organizations that are separate, the billing still comes through Jisc, and we would set that up differently. And we need a role to read this cost and usage report bucket, which then goes off into our billing portal. So this billing role is a kind of minimum thing requirement that we would need. It is literally read-only access to one S3 bucket, though. So it's not a privilege to use it by any stretch. We would also need to apply a support role so that we can raise support calls on your behalf. That support role needs to, the kind of level of privilege that gets is determined by your requirements and how much privilege you think it needs, and managed service roles, again, if needed and is being offered. Okay, speaking of managed service and support. I lost my notes now. That's bad, isn't it? Anyway, hang on a second. Adam, how am I doing for time?
Yeah, we're about just gone half past, so not too bad.
Good. Okay, so how do I get support with OCRE? So as Jamal said, we become the partner in this situation. So all support, all first line support goes through Jisc. So this applies if you're taking managed service or not. So yeah, so you can get the advantage essentially of the Jisc support team when buying through OCRE, which is good. Where we can't help, or there's a fundamental problem that with the kind of the way AWS is behaving, we can raise support calls on your behalf with AWS. We work close with AWS. We have a partner SA we can get support from as well. So in a situation where we can't resolve the issue, and it's rare, then we would get in touch with AWS and raise tickets on your behalf. If there are certain things that need doing, like you need a service quota increasing, for example, and that needs to happen through a support call, then probably I think we would need to raise that. It's an interesting area. We'd need to consider that. What we will do, though, is certainly for accounts within the OCRE organization, we will apply a role that restricts the raising of support tickets because they need to come through us. You will be set up in our ITSM system to raise tickets through Jisc, and there's kind of like there'll be a kind of onboarding conversation to be had, which will kind of take you through how that's all set up, and there's an acceptance into service process that we have, which says, are you set up in the ITSM? Have you got access to it? Can you use it, etc. So all of that kind of happens, and you get kind of the full support package from that point of view, but you can't raise a support ticket within the console, just so you're aware. For member managed organizations that have come into OCRE, I think we probably have to reserve the right to ask that you apply a similar policy to your organization. So if you've got a number of departmental accounts or whatever that are continuously raising support calls, we need some way of kind of preventing that, essentially, direct with AWS, that is. So, I mean, that always sounds a little bit troubling, but like I said, we are an experienced team. We've got lots of AWS qualified staff, and we help our customers every day. So yeah, that should be good. Just kind of related to support, we also strongly recommend that for all production workloads on production accounts hosting production workloads, essentially, that you take AWS business level support. And for test and dev, you might want to consider it depending on your requirements. If you've got a 24/7 active dev team around the world, for example, you might want to take business support, that kind of thing, just to make sure the dev environments have got full support all the time. Cool. So that's support. good. I'm glad it sounds great. Can I have managed service too? It's good when you can ask your own questions and make people say good things. So yes, we offer a managed service on top of OCRE. There's two levels, as Jamal talked about. There's the core managed service, and then there's an enhanced managed service option. Core is free of charge, provided to all OCRE customers, and in order to deliver this managed service, we need to apply certain roles and have certain levels of access to the accounts. We'll come on to something about data in a minute, but this means that we can set up CloudWatch alarms and various monitoring systems. We use a kind of third-party monitoring system as well for various things. I think that enhanced managed service is an extra percentage of your AWS consumption. I checked with Jamal to see if that's before or after discount. I'm not sure. And we can also provide optional extras such as enhanced malware protection and also managed backups for instances. These are optional extras, and they do kind of have a charge per instance. It's not huge, but it is a little bit extra. A full description of managed service is available on request in a PDF. I have it down here. So yeah, again, get in touch if you want to read through the kind of terms and conditions of that. You can take our managed service offering at any point throughout the OCRE, purchasing through OCRE. You don't have to take it from day one, so you can come into OCRE and then think about it depending on how your usage grows and how you manage it yourself and see how that balance works. If you are going to take managed service, either from day one or later on, what we do is conduct a managed service kind of audit of your account. It's a security audit and kind of enumerating instances, seeing what you've got in terms of OSs and that kind of thing. And we would do this to be confident that we can offer you our best possible service. So if say an instance running there is running on, I don't know, Windows 95 or something, then we might say, well, maybe we can't support your account at the moment until that instance has been moved or upgraded. That said, if we do through that process of audit identify any issues, we're really happy to work with you to remediate, see what issues, see where we can help protect things. We also offer a kind of security review and trusted advisor reporting once your accounts are in, and so there might be suggestions we can make and work with you to change things like security group access and various other bits and pieces. So yes, you can have managed service. There might be just a little bit of conversation to be had depending on what's there. Now, obviously, if it's a completely empty account, then that's pretty straightforward from a managed service point of view until you start doing stuff. So that's cool. And like I said, you can take it anytime you like. Okay, so can Jisc see our data in AWS with OCRE? The classic architect answer, it depends. The level, you've seen that there are roles that we would apply to the account, and there are certain levels of access privilege that we need to do actual managed service and these kinds of things. So technically we could see the data at that point. If we've got a managed service in some of this stuff, then yes, possibly. What we do not do is work at that level typically. We very much at the infrastructure level. We don't really work. We would look at the data if you think it's the problem that you're having an issue with your permission and with you there. That's the only time we're going to do that. If you are not taking managed service, then the billing role goes in, and the billing role is read only on an S3 bucket. And we wouldn't go anywhere near the account at all. So we wouldn't be seeing any data. So everything there is as secure as it would be if you were buying through AWS Direct, essentially. And we have a number of kind of policies and processes in place to protect data from that point of view. And like I said, generally, we would not be operating at that level anyway. This is a good one. So if you have savings plans or reserved instances, how are they affected by buying through OCRE? If you've got them, you'll know that they're kind of a fixed cost. So if you've bought them prior to joining OCRE, that fixed cost remains the same. If you are joining OCRE and then you buy them, you get them with the discount provided through the OCRE framework. And that applies for the duration of the reserved instance or savings plan. So OCRE, I think, runs for another 3 years or so. So potentially you could extend that discount beyond the end of OCRE, although who knows what the discount will be after OCRE. So it's kind of, yeah, there's options there anyway. So if you've got them, they don't change. If you buy new ones, you get the discount, essentially. Okay. So if that all sounds a little bit confusing and complicated, this is my kind of simple summary of the entire talk, really. You need to ask yourself 2 questions. One is, are my accounts standalone? That is not part of an AWS organization. And do I manage my own accounts? Do I want to manage my own accounts? If the answer is yes to both of those questions, you've got standalone accounts and you want to manage them themselves, we can onboard you to OCRE by following that invite process very quickly. If you do not have standalone accounts or you want us to manage them for you, then we have to have a conversation, and we'll take it from there. But again, depending on the complexities, it shouldn't be long. It should be, we want to make this as easy as possible, and even if it is complex, that's for us to worry about, not you. So that's my summary of the whole talk, really. So just remember these key points. We'll make OCRE easy. We will act as first line support. We have to own the payer account. We will apply roles for billing and support, and we will conduct a managed service review if you take managed service with us and apply additional roles from that point of view too. And that's me looking forward to welcoming you to OCRE. I didn't leave the cat in. Office PowerPoint suggested a kind of sinister looking kitten as the picture for this slide, but I didn't put it in. So I will if you like next time. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Pete. Really appreciate that. A very informative talk. Thanks a lot for that. I'd like to pass over to Nikki now from the Courtauld Institute of Art. Nikki, if you just let us know your thoughts on and your experiences with procuring AWS through OCRE and Jisc onboarding. How have you found it so far?
It was really straightforward, to be honest. I'll give you just a bit of background so people understand sort of where we started from. We had AWS already, and we were sort of a standalone organization. The drive to AWS was made before I started, and it was really to be able to deal with the split campus we've got. We've temporarily moved all our teaching to a separate campus, and it just proved easy to do it with a cloud solution. And so we've been using that, and thankfully when we went into lockdown, we had an instant cloud sort of system set up, ready to go. We used Amazon Workspaces as our virtual desktop, so it was really easy for us to just spin those up when everyone went remote working. We will stay with AWS for the foreseeable. We can't see any sort of changes with that. But the migration over to the OCRE framework's been fine, and it's been driven probably 2.3 financially. I just couldn't see why we wouldn't do it, because we've got exactly the same service, if probably not better, with the discount. We're also looking at the service for us as well, because we're a really small university and a really, really small IT team, and we have a third-party supplier who manage some of our infrastructure for us at the moment. Long term, that service, we've got some duplication there now, so it'll be quite good as and whenever we get the core service moved over to Jisc. It means I can reduce the reliance on a third party. So we sort of make double savings a little bit with some of the services as well. The process really straightforward. We had probably 3 meetings, I would imagine, probably calls. We went through our estate. So ours is a fairly straightforward estate anyhow. The transition, you wouldn't have even known, to be honest. It was all quite a bit of, there was no bells and there was no fireworks. It just sort of happened. And one of the questions I was asked for my SMT was around service and would there be any impact? And there just wasn't. And I understand why there wasn't. But from I think that's quite a good point to pass up the chain for, from a risk point of view. There was no impact at all on service at all. Me and my team are all set up for logging calls. We haven't logged any yet, which is really good, but I don't know what that service, so I can't comment on how good or bad that service is at the moment, but I'm sure it'll be fine. It's really straightforward, So, we are a small uni. We did have a fairly straightforward AWS setup already, but it was seamless. I think probably took about 2 months from start to finish. I think we spoke January and we went live about a month ago. So it didn't take long at all.
Sounds excellent.
Yeah, no, it was a very simple and easy way to save quite a lot of money instantly.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the whole point of the framework.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really glad as well that first institute come through us has gone really well as well. So just like to say thank you very much for coming on today as well and sharing your thoughts. It's much appreciated.
My pleasure.
So now we've got just about 10 minutes, 12 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask the team? Can't see anything in the Q&A panel within Zoom, but feel free if you want to put something in the chat or in the Q&A session. Deathly silence. It's that post-lunch kind of slot, isn't it? Maybe, I don't know. If you do have any questions, as Pete said, feel free to contact us. Jamal, I think you're most really well known amongst the membership in terms of contact. Is there anything you'd like to?
Yes, no, absolutely. I was just about to add one last bit from me, is that if you're interested in OCRE, please contact us via your account managers or directly to us. As Jisc, obviously, we've got a team of our account managers, both in customers team, education teams. So please do reach out to your account managers, who can then get you in touch with ourselves within the cloud team. And then, yeah, we will be happy to have those discussions with you to take them forward.
Thanks, Jamal. Yeah, so this is our first webinar. We hope to be doing a series of them throughout over the next 12 months and possibly and hopefully longer as well. So there'll be a range of different topics we're working on at the moment. And Pete suggested one earlier, so we might carry that on, I think. But it's going to be about OCRE, it's going to be about Jisc, AWS, and all mainly sort of technical domain, but it could be other things as well. And we will respond to any suggestions as well, or questions that you might have that might lead into a theme. I think it'd be good to sort of go on as well. So yeah, that's it from us. Thank you all again for attending. Really appreciate your time. Nikki, thank you very much for joining us. It was great to hear from you. Such a good sort of first customer. So thanks again. And that's it. I'm going to wrap up today. Hope you all have a good afternoon. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.